Hey YouTube, welcome back. We got about a week and a half to go from the recording of this video until the 1.0 launch of Last Epoch, and we finally have information about the last missing mastery class for all of Last Epoch, and that's the Falconer. So we have some information that's been spoiled by Zizarin and by Maxwell, so shout out to them too for doing an excellent job of providing some footage for us and giving us Zizarin having a bird on his arm, which is pretty cool, and having some nice concise footage so we can know exactly what's going on with Falconer. I spent a lot of time talking it over with people on Discord and people on Twitch trying to figure out how do you best give a TLDR for what is going on with Falconer. And mostly people respond to me with memes. They just say, birds, burb. Bird is the word. Bird. Okay, so like that's what people tell me. But that's not what you want to hear. And really, it took a long time to figure out what on earth to tell you about Falconer. Falconer has a lot of things going on, but there are other classes that have lots of things going on. We compared this a little bit to Forge Guard. And before you close the video and laugh off Falconer and call it bad, don't. But Forge Guard also has a lot of things going on. Forge Guard is the master of two-handed, one-handed, crit, throwing, non-crit, ailment, minions, armor, shields. It's the mastery that has been spread too thin, and it ends up being like a mastery that really covers nothing in particular. And Falconer, it has a little bit of that going on, but the design of Falconer and the fact that it has this falcon that ties together the entire mastery makes it feel so much better. So the TLDR Falconer is this. You're going to have a bird following you around. Whether that bird is going to be 10% of your damage, 50% of percent of your damage, or like 80% of your damage is completely up to you because you can build it any number of those ways. Me, being someone who does not really like minion builds, I actually really like the design of Falconer. The Falcon, as it follows you around, never takes damage, is not targeted by the enemies. You don't need health, leech, dodge, health regeneration. You don't need any kind of defensive stat for your Falcon. And one of the things that I don't like about minion builds, for the most part, is if a monster jumps on me, all of my stats, all of my weapons and my shields and my helmet affixes and my rings, they're all like minion damage, minion crit, minion damage, minion flat damage, minion critical strike chance. And like, if the monster jumps on me, I'm just kind of relying on my minion to come back to me and kill that monster. Falconer has over 20 different ways of scaling its damage based off your stats. So you could conceivably have a Falconer build that actually has no like minion stuff anywhere. It would have like your critical strike chance, your dexterity, your critical strike multiplier, your percent increased damage, your more multipliers, and a percentage of those, maybe even more than 100% of those as they get converted, apply to your Falconer. So you could have a build where like you have a bunch of damage and your Falcon has a bunch of damage. Is it OP? Maybe. The damage numbers look really high, but it also looks like a playstyle that can appeal to a wide variety of people, including myself, who don't really like minion builds. And I think that is awesome. Falconer seems to have a lot of stuff going on for a payoff of dexterity. There's like your passive automatically scales off dexterity. You give like melee damage to your Falcon per dexterity. You can give more damage to your Falcon per dexterity. You can scale your defenses on dexterity. You can be a dodge build, a block build, or a glancing blow build, and all those are going to scale on your dexterity as well for your mastery. There's a lot of payoffs for building dexterity, and I think that's great. For a long time in Last Epoch, your attributes have kind of been kind of meh. Your attributes have been 4% increased damage for basically all of the skills you spec into. But when we had Rune Master just a couple months ago, Rune Master was something that really paid you off for stacking intelligence. Because all of a sudden you would cast speed scales off intelligence. Your mana scales off intelligence. Your cooldown recovery speed scales off intelligence. Your spell critical strike chance scales off intelligence. Like everything scales off intelligence. And Falconer looks to be just a little bit the same way. We have lots of different things that are scaling off your main attribute. So instead of just your helmet prefixes, because remember you have two prefixes, two suffixes, instead of your helmet prefixes just being like vitality plus defense, or like vitality plus plus levels to a skill, all of a sudden it's like, well, do I want vitality? Do I want dexterity? Do I want to use a ring that gives me extra dexterity? Do I want to use a ring that gives me cooldown recovery speed? Do I want to use a body armor that has like tier 7 dexterity? Or do I want to use a body armor that has tier 7 plus levels to a skill? And those kinds of trade-offs exist when you make dexterity into a valid stat that you're interested in scaling. That's awesome. This is a verbose explanation of Falconer. let's refocus just a little bit more. Falconer has lots of playstyles. Falconer has crit, it has bleed, it's got umbral blades exploding with shadow dagger stuff, it's got minion builds, it's got like self-damaging builds. It's got those kinds of things, and they all seem like appropriate uses of the entire Falconer mastery, and I'm impressed that they're able to pull that off while also making it feel not like not like Forge Guard. Or Forge Guard. I'm just gonna rag on that thing for a while. So we also have the very first introduction of traps into Last Epoch. If you played Path of Exile before, these are traps you throw on the ground, very similar to Path of Exile. They're not mines. You don't click them again to detonate them, but you can combo them with your other skills. You can put explosive traps on the ground and have them detonate immediately. You can have them detonate when your bird face plants into them from the skies. You can have them detonate when another skill hits them, or maybe just when the enemies walk over them. And this is something that a lot of people have been looking forward to. So we're going to scroll down for just a little bit. I'm going to highlight the parts of the Falconer passive tree that I think are the coolest. I'm going to highlight a couple things in the individual skills that I think are coolest. And then I will show you a list of builds that Twitch chat is excited to try out. And I'm impressed that they came up with such a variety of stuff, even more than the things that I was already excited for. So in the Falconer passive tree that you see on the screen here, a couple things I'm excited for. Honestly, they're all defensive nodes. So I like things like this because in the past I played a lot of hardcore and I like not feeling so squishy. So having armor per dexterity is a great way of scaling your flat armor, and then you can build like % increased armor on your gear, or you can just have this. It's self-enabling. It says you have increased armor for each time your Falcon has hit an enemy recently. So maybe all of a sudden you're interested in, like, instead of just having your Falcon passively providing buffs to you, you're saying to yourself, oh, I could have it provide even more buffs if I actively used the skill Falcon Strikes, the part of the falconry skill, the active components of it, in order to have it hit more enemies. And then, okay, you can transform Falcon Strikes into a one big hit, or you could have it as like 17 small hits. It's like, well, maybe one of them does more damage, but the 17 small hits might work better with this because it stacks up more hits and gives you more % increased armor. And that is a great trade-off. I love opportunity costs like this in the game. Other things in Falconer that I like, do you want to use a shield? Do you want to scale block effectiveness per dexterity? Do you want to, not transition, but do you want to convert all of that into glancing blow instead? And these nodes that double glancing blows, if you haven't been hit recently, it encourages an active playstyle where you are like not only building dodge, but you're physically dodging attacks because you want to keep these bonuses active. Another node that works out well with this glancing blow stuff is all the way at the very beginning, maximum health gained as endurance threshold. Endurance threshold, well, it ain't great. It's not a stat that I personally ever want to include on my gear. I spend a lot of time ragging an endurance threshold and explaining to people why I don't value it on my gear. But endurance threshold is a value mechanic, especially if you can get it for free. So gaining maximum health as endurance threshold, especially in the very first, like the very first half of the Falconer passive tree, such that Blade Dancer and Marksman also gain access to this. This is really, really cool. I love having this here, and I'm excited to take this on Blade Dancers and Marksman as well, just as another way of getting rewarded for physically avoiding all the small projectiles and all the small enemies that are jumping on my head. Yeah, this is great. Let's jump down to the skills. We have the falconry skill itself, the two skills, Explosive Trap and Net. These are two skills that your Blade Dancers and your Marksmen also have access to. And then these top two skills, which are Aerial Assault and Dive Bomb, these two skills are only available if you're using a bird. And the bird is something that you only have access to if you're playing the bird mastery. So it makes a lot of sense that these two are on the top half of the Falconer mastery tree here. So the things that I really want to shout out here, let's go to Explosive Trap first. If you've ever seen my content or if you tuned in and watched me on twitch.tv, you know that I really have a soft spot for spark charges. And you can make explosive trap. You throw it on the ground. You can throw like 3, 4, maybe even 5 of them at a time. You can make every hit apply a spark charge. And then you could use the fragment of the Enigma offhand. And then you could scale intelligence on your dexterity class. And then you could shift through a pack of enemies, and your shift could proc Shadow Cascade, which is a melee attack, and your melee attack with a 1.5 second cooldown applies an explosive trap on hit, and the hits apply spark charges, and if it hits multiple enemies, then oh my god, you could have such good clear speed off of this. Woo! I think there's a spark charge build out there with explosive trap, maybe as a Falconer, but it could be as a marksman using detonating arrow, maybe melee detonating arrow. It could be a blade dancer. Maybe going low life with an exsanguinous, you have ward, all of a sudden you're stacking intelligence gives you ward retention, and you could have that as like a good basis of a defense. Maybe going low life with Death's Door passive in the mastery for Blade Dancer also gives you base critical strike chance, and the base critical strike chance makes your spark charges even better, so you can actually crit. Whoo! I think this is going to be a build that ends up being someone's favorite build in the whole game. I don't know how to build it yet. I need to get in game. I need to try it out. But the fact that we have spark charges on a Falconer on explosive trap, oh, I love it. I can't wait to try this out. One more build that I want to shout out to you. We're going to go over to net. Net is something that, remember, all 3 masteries have access to this. We're going to scroll down. You can throw the net. You can turn the net into a movement skill. You can move farther based on how much dexterity you have, which sounds hilarious to me. But something that's caught many people's eyes is the possibility of using net, no longer hopping backward. Coming down here, your net traps also use puncture, and they can have melee puncture, they can have bow puncture, and then they use the puncture skill tree, and you can do a lot of stuff with this. So all of a sudden, when you're throwing your net traps, your puncture skill tree, well, you could have a puncture like a puncture Umbral Blade Shadow Dagger build, because your puncture can apply 1 Shadow Dagger on hits. So you could go like the crit Shadow Dagger route with this kind of thing. Or you could use puncture for its other use, which is just bleed. So you could have your nets throwing, your nets applying punctures here. There's more nodes down here for caltrops. There's more nodes that affect caltrops from all sources in aerial assault. If you wanted to scale caltrop bleed damage and net bleed damage and puncture bleed damage, and maybe even your bleed damage from your bird as well, because if you're building bleed, you might go to the falconry tree and have 200% of your bleed damage applied to your bird as well. And there's a lot of moving pieces here, and it makes me real excited for looking at how to build these things. I'll give you a shout out for one more possible build, something that I'm excited to try out. It seems like if you want to one-shot a boss, there might be a couple options in the world of Falconer. So Dive Bomb has these nodes on the bottom right side. Dive Bomb, your bird goes up in the sky, comes down, and hits with 500% effectiveness of added damage. And remember, when it comes to added damage on your Falcon, there's a lot of ways to make your added damage from the weapons that you're holding apply at some kind of percentage to the Falcon as well, especially if you're dual wielding with a node like this. Up to 150% of the effectiveness of both your weapons, if you're dual wielding, give your damage specific stats to your birds. It sure looks like this applies to flat damage as well, and your flat damage is a 500% effectiveness on Daibon here. So the nodes that I'm excited about are the bottom right nodes. You have some Shadow Falcons, which just sounds so edgy when I said those words out loud. It makes me feel like I'm 10 years old again, and I can't wait to swing a katana around. But having this, like your Shadow Falcons go up, your Shadow Falcons land on the enemy, and if they're in a smoke bomb, they go up again, and they go down again, and they like nuke the enemy for a whole bunch of damage. Using this, and then maybe even using Synchronized Strike, just a little piece of technology from the Blade Dancer skill tree to make a bunch of shadows. So we sync strike on top of an enemy, we have a smoke bomb, and then we click our dive bomb, our Falcon goes up, he comes down and explodes, the Shadow Falcons go back up, and they come back down and explode again. It seems like a lot of damage is available in the bottom right of the skill tree. I think you could do a lot of damage in a very short period of time if you're interested in like one-shotting a boss or doing maybe a YouTube meme montage of one-shotting every boss in the game. I think there's some good technology here. So those are the kinds of things that I'm excited for when it goes to when it comes to Falconer. I want to highlight for just a moment the people who are in Twitch chats, who have been in my Discord, and the kinds of things that they are interested in playing. So I've got this notepad document here. I apologize. No, I don't. I don't apologize for not using dark mode. This is my notepad. I'm going to use it however I want. So the builds that Twitch chat's excited for: crit explosive traps, not doing anything with spark charges, like just building the explosive trap damage themselves. Thank goodness there are some people out there who are also excited for spark charges. Like I said before, I think this is going to be one of, like, this has the potential to be like someone's reason for playing the game, for like loading up Last Epoch to begin with. Like, it's flashy, it catches their eyes, like, hey, I wasn't playing Last Epoch before, but now I want to. We already talked about bleed caltrops plus the puncture trap stuff. For some reason, some of you maniacs out there are actually interested in playing Acid Flask. Is it actually good? I've spent a lot of time talking about Acid Flask. I've even made an entire YouTube video called Noob Traps in Last Epoch. And I'm pretty sure that the thumbnail for that YouTube video was Acid Flask. So I have a low opinion of Acid Flask. But does it get changed in the patch notes? A week from now, is it going to get some luck? Is it going to get a new skill tree? Is it going to get reworked? Is it good enough that your Falcon can throw Acid Flasks for you? Is it good enough that you can play like Decoy, and your Decoy can have small explosions and big explosions that are replaced by Acid Flasks, so you're throwing even more Acid Flasks? Maybe. I don't think so. But Twitch chat thinks so. Another sweet idea that that Twitch chat came up with was this idea of maximum mana and using Aerial Assault's Coordinated Assault. I'm going to show this to you because I did think this was quite interesting. So in Aerial Assault is a skill that the bird grabs you by the shoulders and throws you forward. It's a movement skill and it has a damage component attached to it as well. But this Coordinated Assault is pretty interesting. And the reason that it catches my attention is it doesn't give cooldown based on a percentage of your missing mana. It gives cooldown based on maximum mana. Yeah, so if like, it's not a percentage of your mana, it's per maximum mana. So if you have like 500 mana here, you're gonna like get a bigger payoff. Do I have to do math? I refuse to do math here for the YouTube video. You can figure out what 500 mana would be. But, and that's a big but, building maximum mana and getting cooldown for this and being able to use your Falcon strikes for falconry more often and using the dive bomb, which is that huge single target that we just detailed a second ago, sounds like an awesome way to build up your characters. The last one here was Sync Strike plus dive bomb, and that's something that I already described to you. So sorry for ruining the big reveal here. But using Synchronized Strike to generate shadows and then clicking dive bomb in order to have all of these shadows turn into shadow falcons and go up and down with the smoke bomb stuff sounds like just an awesome way of building damage. I'm really into it. 1,000 mana is 100% cooldown, and 100% cooldown would give you half the cooldown. Got it. Okay. And then, but there's other cooldown stuff in here. If dive bomb hits stuff, it recovers a portion of your remaining traversal skills cooldown, and aerial assault is a traversal skill, so then you get cooldown on that, and then aerial assault gives you cooldown on this. There seem to be some pretty good cooldown loops. And then you can also build cooldown on your gear as well. Whoa. There's so many moving pieces. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I was worried that only having one cup of coffee today wasn't going to appropriately communicate how excited I am for this. I'm appropriately excited for this. So the last things that you should know, what are we looking at here? We are currently recording this on the 11th of February. Patch notes could change everything. And by everything, I mean Acid Flask. Maybe Acid Flask ends up not being garbage. But patch notes, we expect those to come out maybe 2, maybe 3 days before the launch. So launch is on the 21st of February. So that would be like maybe the 18th, maybe the 19th. We would end up having the patch notes at that point. And then we have like maybe 24 hours, maybe 48 hours to come up with more refined ideas of what exactly we want to do. And we might get a better idea of what Healing Hands does, which is a paladin skill that's never had a skill tree. So Healing Hands on paladin will get a skill tree finally. We know that shaman is getting a mini rework, so that'll be exciting. We don't know any unique items. We don't know any class specific affixes that will go along with these things. Like maybe you get like something that gives you % increased duration for or maybe Falcon Strikes hits additional enemies. Maybe your Shadow Falcons do % increased damage. I don't know. There could be any number of things, like class-specific affixes. And then, of course, idols. We don't know idols yet either, and we might be getting information about that in the patch notes. So a couple interesting things to get a week from now, which is very good. We also know that we have Twitch drops that are happening on the 22nd. So the very first day of launch, we'll have no Twitch drops. But the 22nd, one day afterward, and going for 2 weeks after that, you can watch anyone on twitch.tv who's participating in this Yours truly will, of course, be doing that. Make sure to go to twitch.lastepoch.com in order to get your account set up right now so you don't miss out on anything when that actually happens. You'll get some free MTX for like pets following you around in game. Speaking of like Last Epoch stuff in that regard, on the Steam page, you'll also see that there are 3 different editions for purchasing Last Epoch. I have the default one because I bought this game many, many moons ago. But for you, if you're interested in picking up Last Epoch, you can buy the default edition, or you can pick up the other editions that have additional Epoch coins, which are the coins you can spend to pick up MTX in game. And they also have some additional pets if you're interested in MTX like that. I like getting pets. I like stuff like that. Some people hate MTX. Some people love MTX. I liked MTX. So if I can get some extra cool stuff, I'm interested in doing that. I might be picking up one of the 3 editions as well, as long as I have some Epoch points and some money to throw toward the developers, because I've already been playing this game for a long time and I quite like it. So I think that about covers it. Is there anything else that you need to know? If you're watching here on Nexus, if you're watching here live on Twitch, make sure you type in !Nexus. There's lots of content creators out there who have Nexus accounts. Mine happens to be nexus.gg/parrythepig, where if you don't already own Last Epoch, you could just go to that link. It costs the same amount of money for you, but it also gives me a little bit of kickback as a way of the developers to support me. So it's nice for them to do that. Let's call it quits there. I'm excited for Falconer. If I play Falconer, if it's my league start, if it's the very first build I play, it spark charges. Is Spark Charges better as a Falconer or as a Marksman or as a like Blade Dancer for getting base critical strike chance? I don't know. But the thing that absolutely excites me the most is Spark Charges, because I'm a real sucker for Spark Charges. If there's a build that you're excited for, if there's something that you are interested in trying out or building around or investigating in game as soon as you get your hands on Falconer that I have not talked about, be sure to let me know in the comments of this video here. And I would love to see what you're cooking up, because at some point we're going to have to do a build contest. And you know me, I do like sweet builds. So thanks for being here. We'll see you in about a week for patch notes. Talk to you next time.